Welcome back to the Cyber Risk TV live stream from the expo floor, a busy expo floor here at InfoSec World 2024. Uh, we're here celebrating the 30th anniversary of InfoSec World. I'm your host, Dr. Dustin Sachs, and today I'm joined by the godfather of cybersecurity, Todd Fitzgerald, who's the Vice President for Cybersecurity Strategy at the Cyber Risk Collaborative. And today we're talking about Todd's books, The Privacy Leader and the CISO Compass. Todd, great to have you here. Great to have you on that side of the interview equation.
Yeah, this is very different after 190 episodes of CISO stories. I had the advantage of being on the side that had all the questions.
Yeah, Jessica Hoffman and I may have compared notes recently, since I know she got to interview you very recently, and now I'm getting that opportunity. We may have had some collaboration as to, the hard-hitting questions that we're now going to throw at you.
Well, good.
And we may have consulted with many of your guests to try to see what they wanted to throw back at you. No, but, so we're here at InfoSec World. You've obviously been here many times. What keeps bringing you back? What do you love about InfoSec World?
Well, I think for me, a lot of it's the networking. And it's networking with people that I've known for many, many years, but it's also meeting new people. I mean, every time I come here, you get into conversations with people, and if you're sitting next to somebody and you strike up a conversation, you get to know that person, and people have to do that, and I think that's the big value. And then the presentations are always great here.
Absolutely, and I know the elephant in the room we're definitely going to address, which is, you're obviously a very prolific author. You've written many books on topics that are important to CISOs and security leaders. Give us a little bit of an insight into what goes into that process. What was it that caused you to come up with this idea to write these books, to come up with these ideas, and to address topics that really don't get the kind of attention they sometimes deserve?
Well, a lot of it is having to do with a gap in the market and in what I saw. And I actually wrote the first CISO leadership book that was published by a professional services organization. It was published by IC Squared in 2008. Okay, so that's how long ago. And the book is actually half the size of the CISO Compass. In fact, the CISO Compass book is a complete rewrite of the book. But what inspired me to write the CISO Compass book was that I saw a lot of books that were out there, but books that didn't address the roadmap. What is it that the CISO needs to do and their teams? What is this job? And I saw books that were good books, but they were about somebody's journey, okay, and what they did. And I wanted much more than that. I wanted to bring in collaborators into the book and not just create a book of a bunch of stories smashed together, but something that had coherence to it as a roadmap. And that's where the CISO Compass was born. That's why it's done so well over the last 5 years.
And then you followed it up and you wrote what seems like almost a totally different book, but has a lot of the same kind of guts and backbone to it, which is, the Privacy Compass. Tell us about why the shift, to the Privacy Compass, and how does that kind of serve as a really good sequel to?
Yeah, the two books are very complementary, and I think every CISO and their teams needs to understand the privacy side of the equation. And for me, I was the global chief security officer for Grant Thornton, and we were in 145 countries. And so I had to learn about privacy. And so I went ahead and I was certified in Canadian law, and I was certified in EU law, and I was certified in US law, and then I was certified as a privacy manager. And so I went through all that, not to get a bunch of letters after my name, but to explore something at a greater depth. When you have to take a test at the end of it, you're going to learn the material. And then I partnered with Dr. Valerie Lyons, who lives in Dublin, Ireland area. And she has her doctorate in information privacy. She's the COO of a security and consulting firm. And she ran cybersecurity for a bank for 15 years. So the two of us got together. We used the same structure, but we were able to look at US law, European law, and then we brought in other people from 15 different countries to collaborate with us on this book. It just was such a natural idea to bring in something that would help chief privacy officers, data protection officers, and also CISOs.
And I'll say, having read both of the books, that I think this is probably the first time in history that the sequel was as good as the original, which is, certainly there's only a handful of them. I think of like The Empire Strikes Back. I think of, very few, Terminator,
Yeah.
very few sequels that live up to the original. And, I think you've managed to do that.
And I think they're complementary books. I think of them as they're using the same kind of structure, but one's looking at purely at the cybersecurity piece, and there's privacy pieces in there as well, and the other piece is looking at the privacy component. But the glue that brings them together is that we were looking for a business-oriented approach because we want to run privacy and security like a business, right?
Right.
And so I thought, well, we could come up with Todd's strategy for business. Would you buy that?
Oh, probably not.
Probably not. Okay. Well, I thought maybe I get one sale on that. But so what we decided to do was when we were, when Dr. Valerie Lyons and I were actually talking about this from the very beginning in the CISO Compass book, we said, you know what? There's already a process out there. It's called the McKinsey 7S framework, and it was developed many years ago. And it was for organizations to develop their organizational effectiveness. And I thought, this is brilliant. This is exactly what we need. So we mapped those things to the cybersecurity activities in the CISO Compass book. And then we did the same thing in the privacy book to the privacy activities. This is what you need to have a good program. And those 7 S's are strategy, structure, systems, staff, style, skills, and shared values. And you think of systems as like your processes and routines that you use in an organization. So for example, you may have on the cybersecurity side, what are some of those systems that we use? Well, not IT systems, but processes and routines to do our jobs. Things like risk assessments, frameworks, looking at incidents. Those are tools for the CISO, right? And then we flip over to, staff and skills, and we look at each of those different areas. And the whole idea behind this is that the reason the 7S model was developed is consultants were going out to companies and saying, well, all you have to do is get your structure right and you can meet your strategy. And Tom Peters and George Waterman said, no, that's not right. There's 7 things and they're all equally important. So if we get those 7 things right, we will have a good security program. We will have a good privacy program.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think again, privacy is such an important thing because it's the issue of privacy is the one that affects anybody, whether you're in tech or not. I mean, it's when a breach occurs, it's always some issue with some element of privacy, and it is such a hard area to understand because it is so dependent on where you are jurisdictionally. And in the U.S. especially, you may have 3, 4, 5 different jurisdictions that are implicated in anything, state, local, federal, international, and different frameworks. So I think, having that kind of guidance and that kind of structure is important, and then also marrying the other elements. So
yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And the privacy is really, looking at that data and, what it is and who needs to have access to it and how we protect that information. The security side, that's how we protect that stuff.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
And we've gotten into other issues in the book. In terms of the collaborators, they wrote these gray boxes in the book, which are actionable insights. So think of, what was the situation? What did you do about it? What was the result? What would you do differently? And these are all very important things to learn from, but to learn from people that have done these jobs.
Yeah.
In the Privacy Leader Compass, for example, we have the Chief Privacy Officer for Microsoft. Julie Brill contributed to the book. Ann Kavukian, who created Privacy by Design, wrote the foreword for the book. Daniel Solove, who, and, I can go down the list.
Oh yeah,
Tim
of
Clemson.
course.
There's
Absolutely.
65 people from regulators to privacy experts in this space that we all learn from have contributed to this work. And that's because they wanted to share their information and be part of that framework. And we did the same thing on the CISO Compass, from people that were leading JP Morgan to people that created the standards like the NIST standards, the Cloud Security Alliance, the CIS controls, all of that. I could just keep going on.
Oh, of course.
I'm just amazed at the caliber of people that really helped us with these books.
Well, no, and I mean, it's a testament to the organization that you've put together and the network that you've got. We're coming up on the kind of the end of our conversation here, and shifting back to where we are, sitting here at InfoSec World, for those people who may be watching who are hesitant or not sure if they should come next year, getting into the budget time this time of year, I've been asking pretty much everybody that we've been interviewing, what would you say to those people who are kind of on the fence or not really thinking about whether or not they should be at InfoSec World? What would you say to them to convince them that they should be here next year?
I've always been a huge proponent of conferences, and I love InfoSec World. I think it's a big enough conference that you get the breadth of knowledge, but it's also small enough that you get the intimacy and can make those connections. And I tell you, you're not going to learn everything in your office. So wherever we call our office today, and think of it today.
Yeah.
A lot of people are working from their home office.
Yeah.
So you're isolated, and you can get so much information just from other people listening to the sessions. And my view is if you're in a session and you're not learning at least 3 things, and by that I mean an affirmation of something you already know, something that may be new or different, or just something that's like, boy, I'm glad I'm not doing that. It's a learning, and you're not going to get that kind of knowledge without coming to conferences like this.
Absolutely. No, this is great. Obviously we're coming up to the last couple of minutes. Where can people find more about your books? Where can they find more
Sure.
about you? Where can they follow what you're going to be doing in your, post CISO Stories world now?
Yeah. So the books, they're available on Amazon. That's where most people get their books today. You click away, you'll have it in a couple days. Kindle formats, these formats. That's the easiest way to get it. As far as the future goes, stay tuned. I'm always looking for ideas, and people can reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, hey, you know what, we'd like to see something written about this, because I look at what does the market need, and I see myself as a mouthpiece. Dr. Lyons takes in a lot of information. She speaks at conferences as well. We're all about sharing information. Let's not lock it up. Let's make us all stronger by sharing this information.
Yeah, and that's a common theme we've heard as well, is this idea that cybersecurity should be a industry where everybody's sharing information, and that's why these conferences and these events and the things that are being done at Cyber Risk Collaborative are so important, and Cyber Risk Alliance are so important. So thank you, Todd, so much. This has been truly an honor for me to get to interview you as somebody who interviews some of the best in our industry. Thank you all for tuning in for this live stream from InfoSec World 2024. We're going to have a couple of really great additional interviews coming up here very soon. To find all of the Cyber Risk TV coverage of this year's event, visit securityweekly.com/ISW, and we'll see you again in a few minutes, actually, I think, for our next interview. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Dustin, so
Absolutely.
much for
Thank
much
you.
of you. Thank you.